Welcome to the 1,000 Nights and One Night. Now, when it was the 190th night, she said, It hath reached me, O auspicious king, that quoth King Shahriman to his son Kamar al-Zaman, The name of Allah encompass thee about, O my son, and be thy wit preserved from witlessness. What thing be this young lady whom thou fanciest I sent to thee last night, and then again that I sent to withdraw her from thee by dawn? By the Lord, O my son, I know nothing of this affair, and Allah upon thee, tell me if it be a delusion of dreaming or a deception caused by indisposition. For verily, thou layest down to sleep last night with thy mind occupied amid marriage, and troubled with the talk of it. Allah damn marriage in the hour when I spake of it, and curse him who counselled it. And without doubt or difference, I say that being moved in mind by the mention of wedlock, thou dreamest that a handsome young lady embraced thee, and didst fancy thou sawest her when awake. But all this, O my son, is but an imbroglio of dreams. Replied Kamar al-Zaman, Leave this talk, and swear to me by Allah the All-Creator, the Omniscient, the humbler of the tyrant, Caesars, and the destroyer of the Choros, that thou knowest not of the young lady, nor of her wanting place. Quoth the king, By the might of Ali Almighty, the God of Moses and Abraham, I know naught of all this, and never have heard of it. It is assuredly a delusion of dreams thou hast seen in sleep. Then the prince replied to his sire, I will give thee a self-evident proof that it happened to me when on awake. And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of the day, and ceased saying her permitted say. Now, when it was the 191st night, she said, It hath reached me, O auspicious king, that Kamar al-Zaman said to his sire, I will give thee a self-evident proof that this happened to me when on awake. Now, let me ask thee, did it ever befall any man to dream that he was battling a sore battle, and awake from sleep, and find in his hand a sword blade being smeared with blood? Answered the king, No, by Allah, O my son, this hath never been. Rejoice, Kamar al-Zaman. I will tell thee what happened to me, and it was this. Meseemed I awoke from sleep in the middle of the past night, and found a girl lying by my side, whose form was like mine, and whose favour was as mine. I embraced her, and turned her about with my hand, and took her seal ring, which I put on my finger, and she pulled off my ring and put it on hers. Then I went to sleep by her side, but refrained from her for shame of thee, deemed that thou hadst sent her to me, intending to tempt me with her, and incline me to marriage, and suspecting thee to be hidden somewhere whence thou couldst see what I did with her. And I was ashamed even to kiss her on the mouth for thy account, thinking over this temptation to wedlock. And when I awoke at point of day, I found no trace of her, nor could I come at any news of her, and there befell me what thou knowest of with the eunuch and with the wazir. How can this case have been a dream and a delusion, when the ring is a reality? Save for her ring on my finger, I should indeed have deemed it a dream. But here is the ring on my little finger. Look at it, O king, and see what it is worth. So saying, he handed the ring to his father, who exclaimed, and he turned it over, and he looked at his son, and said, Verily, there is in this ring some mighty mystery and some strange secret. What befell thee last night with the girl is indeed a hard nut to crack, and I know not how intruded upon this intruder. None is the cause of all this pother save the wazir. But Allah upon thee, O my son, take patience, so haply the Lord may turn to gladness this thy grief, and to thy sadness bring complete relief, as quoth one of the poets. Haply shall fortune draw her rein, and bring fair chance, for she is changeful, jealous, vain. Still I may woo my want, and wishes win, and see on heels of care unfeigned the feign. And now, O my son, I am certified at this hour that thou art not mad, but thy case is a strange one, which none can clear up for thee save the Almighty. Cried the prince, By Allah, O my father, deal kindly with me, and seek out this young lady, and hasten her coming to me, else I shall die of woe, and of my death shall no one know. Then he betrayed the ardour of his passion, and turned towards his father, and repeated these two couplets: If your promise of personal call prove untrue, deign in vision to grant me an interview. Quoth they, How can phantom appear to the sight of a youth whose sight is foredone, perdu? Then, after ending his poetry, Kamar al-Zaman again turned to his father with submission and despondency, and shedding tears in flood, began repeating these lines. And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of the day, and ceased to say her permitted say. Now, when it was the 192nd night, she said, It hath reached me, O auspicious king, that when Kamar al-Zaman had repeated to his father these verses, he wept and complained and groaned from a wounded heart, and added these lines: Beware that eye glance which hath magic might. Whatever turn these orbs, it bars our flight. Nor be deceived by low, sweet voice that breathes a fever festering in heart and sprite. So soft that silky skin were rose to touch it, she'd cry, and teardrops rain for pain and fright. Did suffer Ain in sleep pass o'er her hand, scented he chose to dwell in scented sight. Her necklets vie with tinkling of her belt, her wrists strike either wristlet dumb with spite. When would her bangles bust those rings in ear, upon the lover's eyne high mysteries light? I'm blamed for love of her, nor pardon claim. Eyes are not profiting which lack foresight. Heaven strip thee, blamer might, unjust art thou. Before this fawn must every eye low bow. After which he said, By Allah, O my father, I cannot endure to be parted from her even for an hour. The king smote hand upon hand and exclaimed, There is no majesty, and there is no might, save in Allah, the glorious, the great. No cunning contrivance can profit us in this affair. Then he took his son by the hand, and carried him to the palace, where Kamar al-Zaman lay down on the bed of languor, and the king sat at his head, weeping and mourning over him, and leaving him not night or day, till at last the wazir came in to him and said, O king of the age and the time, how long wilt thou remain shut up with thy son, and hide thyself from thy troop? Haply the order of thy realm may be deranged by reason of thine absence from thy grandees and the officers of state. It behoveth the man of understanding, if he have various wounds in his body, to apply him first to medicine, the most dangerous. So it is my counsel to thee that thou remove thy son from this place to the pavilion, which is in the palace overlooking the sea, and shut thyself up with him there, setting apart in every week 2 days, Thursday and Monday, for state receptions and progresses and reviews. On these days let thine emirs and wazirs and chamberlains and viceroys and high officials and grandees of the realm, and the rest of the levities and the lieges, have access to thee, and submit their affair to thee, and do thou their needs, and judge among them, and give and take with them, and bid and forbid. And the rest of the week thou shalt pass with thy son, Kamar al-Zaman, and cease not doing thus till Allah shall vouchsafe relief to you twain. Think not, O king, that thou art safe from the shifts of time, and the strokes of change which come like a traveller in the night. For the wise man is ever on his guard. How well saith the poet, Thou deemest well of time when days went well, and fearest not what ills might bring thee fate. The night so fair and restful cozen thee, for peaceful nights bring woes of heavy weight. On children of mankind whom time befriends, beware of time's deceits, or soon or late. When the Sultan heard his wazir's words, he saw that they were right, and deemed his counsel wise, and it had effect upon him, for he feared lest the order of the state be deranged, So he rose at once and bade transport his son from his sick room to the pavilion in the palace overlooking the sea. Now this palace was girt round by the waters, and was approached by a causeway 20 cubits wide. It had windows on all sides, commanding an ocean view. Its floor was paved with parti-colored marbles, and ceiling was painted in the richest pigments, and figured with gold and lapis lazuli. They furnished it for Kamar al-Zaman with his splendid upholstery, embroidered rugs and carpets of the richest silk, and they clothed the walls with the choice brocades, and hung carpets and curtains bespangled with gems of price. In the midst they set him a couch of juniper wood, inlaid with pearls and jewels, and Kamar al-Zaman sat down thereon. But the excess of his concern and the passion for the young lady had wasted his charms and emaciated his body. He could neither eat, nor drink, nor sleep. He was like a man who had been sick 20 years of sore sickness. His father seated himself at his head, grieving for him with the deepest grief, and every Monday and every Thursday he gave his wazirs and emirs and chamberlains and viceroys and lords of the realm and levies and the rest of his lieges leave to come up to him in that pavilion. So they entered, and they did several services and duties, and abode with him till the end of the day, when they went their way, and the king returned to his son at the pavilion, whom he left not neither by day or by night. He ceased not doing on this wise for many days and nights. Such was the case with Kamar al-Zaman, son of King Shahriman. But as regards Princess Budur, daughter of King Gayir, lord of the isles and the 7 palaces, when the 2 jinns bore her home and laid her on her bed, she slept till daybreak, when she awoke, and sitting upright looked right and left, but saw not the youth who had lain in her bosom. At this her vitals fluttered, her reason fled, and she shrieked a loud shriek, which awoke all her slave girls and nurses and duennas. They flocked into her, and the chief of them came forward and asked, "What aileth thee, O my lady?" Answered the princess, "O wretched old woman, where is my beloved, that handsome youth who lay next to me last night in my bosom? Tell me whither he is gone." Now when the duenna heard this, the light starkened in her sight, and she feared from her mischief with sore fright, and said to her, "O my lady Budur, what what unseemly words are these?" Cried the princess, "Woe to thee, pestilent crone that thou art! I ask thee again, where is my beloved, the goodly youth with the shining face, the slender form, the jetty eyes, and the joined eyebrows, who lay with me last night from supper tide until near daybreak?" She rejoined, "By Allah, O my lady, I have seen no young man, nor any other. I conjure thee, carry not this unseemly jest too far, lest we all lose our lives. For perhaps the joke may come to thy father's ears, who shall then deliver us from his hands." And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of the day, and ceased to say her permitted say. Now, when it was the 193rd night, she said, "It hath reached me, O auspicious king, that the duenna bespake the lady Budur in these words: Allah upon thee, O my lady, carry not this unseemly jest too far, for perhaps it may come to thy father's ears, and who shall then deliver us from his hand?" The princess rejoined, "In very sooth, a youth lay with me last night, one of the fairest faced of the men." Exclaimed the duenna, "Heaven preserve thy reason! Indeed, no one lay with thee last night." Thereupon the princess looked at her hand, and finding Kamar al-Zaman's seal ring on her finger instead of her own, said to her, "Woe to thee, thou accursed, thou traitress! Wilt thou lie to me, and tell me that none lay with me last night, and swear to me a falsehood in the name of the Lord?" Replied the duenna, "But by Allah, I do not lie to thee, nor have I sworn falsely." Then the princess was incensed by her words, and drawing a sword, she had it by her. She smote the old woman with it and slew her. Whereupon the eunuch and the waiting woman and the concubines cried out at her, and ran to her father, and without stay or delay acquainted him with her case. So the king went to her and asked, O my daughter, what aileth thee? And she answered, O my father, where is the youth who lay with me last night? Then her reason fled from her head, and she cast her eyes right and left, and rent her raiment even to the skirt. When her sire saw this, he bade the women lay hands on her. So they seized her and manacled her, and put a chain of iron around her neck, made her fast to one of the palace windows, and there left her. Thus far concerning Princess Budur. But as regards her father, King Gair, the world was straitened upon him when he saw what had befallen his daughter, for that he loved her, and her case was not a little grievous to him. So he summoned on it to the doctors and the astrologers, and the men skilled in talisman writing, and said to them, Whoso healeth my daughter of what ill she hath, I will marry him to her, and give him half of my kingdom. But whoso cometh to her, and cureth her not, I will strike off his head, and hang it over the palace gate. Accordingly, all who went into her, that failed to heal her, he beheaded, and hung their heads over the palace gates, till he had beheaded, on her account, 40 doctors, and crucified 40 astrologers. Wherefore the general held aloof from her, all the physicians having failed to medicine her malady, and her case was a puzzle to the men of science, and the adepts in Kabbalistic characters. And as her longing and passion redoubled, and love and distraction were sore upon her, she poured forth tears, and repeated these couplets. My fondness, O my moon, for thee my foeman is, and to thy comradeship the nights my thought compel. In gloom I bide with fire that flames below my ribs, whose though I make comparison with heat of hell, I am plagued with the sorest stress of pine and ecstasy, nor clearest noontide can that horrid pain dispel. Then she sighed, and repeated these also. Salams from me to friends in every stead. Indeed, all dear friends do I incline. Salams, but not salams that bid adieu, salams that growth of good for you design. I love you dear indeed, nor less your land, but bide I far from every need of mine. And when the Lady Budur ceased repeating her poetry, she wept till her eyes waxed sore and her cheeks changed form and hue, and in this condition she continued 3 years. Now she had a foster brother by the name of Marzawan, who was traveling in far lands and absent from her the whole of this time. He loved her with an exceeding love, passing the love of brothers. So when he came back, he went in to his mother and asked for his sister, the Princess Budur. She answered him, O my son, thy sister hath been smitten with madness, and has passed these 3 years with a chain of iron around her neck, and all the physicians and men of science have failed at healing her. When Marzawan heard these words, he said, I must needs go into her. Peradventure, I may discover what she hath, and be able to medicine her. And his mother replied, Needs must thou visit her, but wait till tomorrow, that I may contrive something to suit thy case. Then she set afoot to the palace of the Lady Budur, and accosting the eunuch in charge of the gates, made him a present, and said to him, I have a daughter, who was brought up with thy mistress, and since then I married her. And when that befell the princess which befell her, she became troubled and sore concerned. And I desire of thy favor that my daughter may go in to her for an hour, and look on her, and then return whence she came, so shall none know of it. Quoth the eunuch, This may not be except by night, after the king hath visited his child and gone away. Then come thou with thy daughter. So she kissed the eunuch's hand, and returning home, waited till the morrow at nightfall. And when it was time, she arose and sought her son Marzawan, and attired him in women's apparel. Then taking his hand in her hand, led him towards the palace, and ceased not walking with him till they came upon the eunuch, after the Sultan had ended his visit to the princess. Now, when the eunuch saw her, he arose to her and said, "Enter, but do not prolong thy stay." So they went in, and when Marzawan beheld the Lady Budur in the aforesaid plight, he saluted her, after his mother had doffed his woman's garb. Then he took out of their satchel books he had brought with him, and lighting a wax candle, he began to recite certain conjurations. Thereupon the princess looked at him, and recognized him, and said, "Oh, my brother, thou hast been absent on thy travels, and thy news has been cut off from us." He replied, "True, but Allah hath brought me back safe and sound. I am now minded to set out again, nor aught delay me but the news I hear of thee. Wherefore my heart burned for thee, and I came to thee, so happily I may free thee of thy malady." She rejoined, "O my brother, thinkest thou that madness aileth me?" "Yes," answered he, and she said, "Not so, by Allah. 'Tis even as saith the poet." Quoth they, "Thou ravest on him thou lovest." Quoth I, "The sweets of love are only for the insane. Love never maketh time his friend befriend. Only the gin-struck wit such boon can gain." Well, yes, I'm mad. Bring him who maddened me, and if he cure my madness, blame restrain. Then let Marzawan know that she was loved after, and he said, "Tell me concerning thy tale, and what befell thee. Haply there may be in my hand something which may be a means of deliverance for thee." And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of the day, and ceased saying her permitted say. Now, when it was the 194th night, she said, "I have reached me, O auspicious king, that Marzawan thus addressed Princess Budur. Tell me concerning thy tale, and what befell thee. Haply Allah may inspire me with the means of deliverance for thee." Quoth she, "O my brother, hear my story, which is this. One night I awoke from sleep in the last third of the night, and sitting up saw by my side the handsomest of youths that be, and tongue faileth to describe him, for he was as a willow wand, or an Indian rattan cane. So methought it was my father who had done on this wise, in order thereby to try me, that he had consulted me concerning wedlock, when the king sought of him for me as a wife, and I refused. It was this thought withheld me from arousing him, for I feared that if I did aught, or embraced him, he would peradventure inform my father of my doings. But in the morning I found on my finger his seal ring in place of my own, which he had taken. And, O my brother, my heart was seized with love of him at first sight, and for the violence of my passion and longing, I have never savored the taste of sleep, and have no recognition. For the violence of my passion and longing, I have never savored the taste of sleep. I have no occupation save weeping always, and the repeating verses night and day. And this, O my brother, is my story, and the cause of my madness." Then she poured forth tears, and repeated these couplets: "Now love has banished all that bred delight. With that heart-nibbling fawn my joys took flight. Lightest of trifles, lover's blood to him who wastest the vitals of the hapless wight. For him I'm jealous of my sight and thought. My heart acts spy upon my thoughts and sight. Thou long-lashed eyelids rain on me in their shafts, guileful, destroying hearts, where'er they light. Now, while my portion in the world endures, shall I behold him ere I quit world sight? What bear I for his sake I'd hide, but tears betray my feelings to the spy's despite. When near, our union seemeth ever far. When far, my thoughts to him I nearest are." And presently she continued, "See then, O my brother, how thou mayest aid me in mine affliction." So Marzawan bowed his head groundwards, all wondering and not knowing what to do. Then he raised it and said to her, "All thou hast spoken to me I hold to be true, though the case of the young man pass my understanding. But I will go round about all these lands, and I will seek for what may ail thee, and help thy healing thee. Haply Allah shall appoint thy healing to be at my hands. Meanwhile, take patience, and be not disquieted. Thereupon Marzawan farewelled her, praying that she might be constant, and left her repeating these couplets. Thine image ever companies my sprite, for all thou distance from the pilgrim's sight. But my heart wishes e'er track thee near. What is the lightning's speed to thought's swift flight? Then go not thou, my very light of eyes. When thou art gone, lack all the coal of light. Then Marzawan returned to his mother's house, where he passed the night. And when the morrow dawned, having equipped himself for his journey, he fared forth and ceased not faring from city to city, and from island to island for a whole month, till he came to a town named al-Tirab. Here he went about scenting news of the townsfolk, so happily he might light on a cure for the princess's malady. For in every capital he entered or passed by, it was reported that Queen Budur, daughter of the king Gayer, had lost her wits. But arriving at al-Tirab city, he heard that Kamar al-Zaman, son of King Shahriman, was fallen sick and afflicted with melancholy madness. So Marzawan asked the name of the prince's capital, and they said to him, It is on the island of Calidian, and it lieth distant from our city a whole month's journey by sea, and by land it is 6 months' march. So he went down to the sea in a ship which was bound for the Calidian islands, and he sailed with a favoring breeze for a whole month till they came in sight of the capital. And there remained for him but to make the land, when behold, there came out on them a tempestuous wind, which carried away the mast and rent the canvas, so that the sails fell into the sea, and the ship capsized with all on board. And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of the day, and ceased to say her permitted say. And so do I cease my tale for the day, until it be morrow.